Welcome back to the Rediscovery Journal, the podcast where healing meets honesty. I'm your host, Sophia, and each week we dive deep into stories of self discovery, mental health, and the raw, real moments that shape who we are. Whether you're on the journey of growth, seeking clarity, or simply need a reminder that you're not alone, you're in the right place. Let's rediscover what it means to simply know ourselves one conversation at a time. So this week, I have another special guest again. She's a printmaker and mixed media form artist whose work focuses on social justice and feminism and is currently pursuing her master's in art therapy and counseling. Welcome, Ashley. Is there anything you kind of want to start off sharing background information about yourself?
Right now, I've been in that program for about 2 years, so that's been my consuming my life, and I've had some big moves and stuff since I've been in grad school. But yeah, I don't get to print make much anymore out of the studio out of college, but I still really have a passion for it.
Yeah, I think that that's so cool because, like, looking back on my college days, I wish I had time to take more free flowing or like artistic classes because mine were all science based. And so, like, yeah, science is cool, but it would have been nice to have more of that like creativity aspect that I got in an actual classroom instead of only having to rely on external organizations and stuff for that. So, I wanted to ask you what got you interested initially into the concept of art therapy. And can you talk a little bit about what art therapy is for those who don't know?
Yeah. So art therapy it's kind of like talk therapy where you are working through like your psychological problems that you might be having or just like life stuff. But instead of talking being the main form of like communicating and working through things, we make art with the clients. And a lot of the time, the therapist will make art next to the client or like help the client with their piece. But then there are some times where like the therapist won't make art. So it just kind of varies on like the therapist and the session as well. But I found my passion. I was actually just like thinking about it when you were talking about like taking art classes and not being able to do that. I was in high school, I thought I was going to be a STEM person. I was very much focused on taking math and science classes. And when I got to college, I went to my first day of Calc 2 and was like, oh, like this is not for me. And because they were like, oh, you should remember this formula and this formula and this. And I was just like totally freaking out. I called my mom crying on my way back to my dorm and I was like, Mom, like this is not what I want to do. This is not who I am. Like I have to find something else. I spent a semester undecided and I found an art therapy club on campus. And I happened to be taking an entry level, it was called Visual Perceptions, but it wasn't an art studio, but we got to make art in it. And then I was also in Psych 101 and I had never taken any psych classes before or anything, but I was like, this is really interesting. And I realized like through that semester how much I love both the aspects of like science and art. And art therapy just spoke to me through that club. We got to do a lot of different group exercises because it was a club. So we would do like a group exercise. So I didn't get like individual art therapy, but we did a lot of stuff together. And I really loved the integration of like the two sides of my brain. I like finally felt like I was like coming home to like who I was. And I ended up I I started at so I'm from Iowa. I started at the University of Northern Iowa and I ended up at Iowa State, which is how I know Anka actually.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say, I know that she
Yeah.
mentioned that y'all like, did you work at the same place or something?
Yeah,
Yes,
so
okay.
we were both design students and we worked in this little studio on campus that offered like arts and crafts to just like anybody. We both worked there together, but we were in the same college, but had never like met or anything. But yeah, so that's how we met. But I transferred to Iowa State after my first semester and like declared a design major and my bachelor's degree is in integrated studio arts and I did that. I took psych classes kind of for fun. I didn't minor in it. I probably should have, but I didn't. And I took a year off and art is really what has saved my own mental health like throughout all of this. I have an art journal almost always and like and I know we're going to talk about art journaling later, so I won't like get too much into that, but I just I make art to feel better all
Mhm.
the time, and it has really changed my life, being able to, like, express myself in various forms through art making, and, so I took a year off after I graduated my undergrad. My dad had cancer, and I moved home to help be his caretaker and just help my mom around the house and stuff. My mom works full time still, so it was just a lot of work for her. So I moved home and like had a part time job bartending, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do at that point. Like I had kind of strayed from art therapy and was
Mhm.
thinking about maybe being an art teacher.
Ooh, okay.
And I substitute taught for a little bit, and I decided that handling 25 kids at a time was not for me. And everybody always like laughs when I say that. I'm like, kids are awesome. I love kids, but I can't handle 25 of them at a time. Like there's a special place for the people that can, but it is
Mhm.
not me. So then I ended up applying to the program I'm in, and I got in and I started the fall of 2023,
Okay.
and I've been in that ever since.
So going off of like the concept of art therapy, is it very free flowing, or is there like when you go into doing a piece, is there more like defined guidelines, or how does that work?
That's a really good question. It can be both. So we call them directives when it's like guidelines. So one directive off the top of my head is like the bridge drawing, and they use it a lot in like addictions, but it can be used in lots of different areas as well. But it's like you imagine yourself, or you imagine a bridge, and you draw the bridge, and then you imagine yourself on the bridge and you place yourself on that bridge, and that's like pretty symbolic of like where you're at with progress with just like different things in your life. And you usually go into it with an intention of like focusing on a specific area. So with like addictions it would be like recovery, but of course like whatever else it could be, like it's with progress in any form. So that, and like, I mean, there's there's this whole theory, it's called the expressive arts continuum. It's like it's really hard to explain, and it was a hard concept to grasp, but it's like the more fluid materials you use, like the more like emotional you will be, or like not
Mm,
you will be, but like the more intact with your emotions you will be. Whereas like the more like controlled mediums, so like a pencil, for example, would be a lot more like in your like physical space. And I
okay.
might be misquoting that. I haven't studied that in a year, so I could be butchering that. But that's like kind of the gist of like the idea is like the different mediums mean like, or like can bring out different things for you. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, so there, but then also you could like go into a therapy session and they'd be like, what do you want to make today? What do you want
Mm,
to do? So
okay.
there's two different
Interesting.
ends of it.
Okay, because I
Yeah.
know for me, like, I mean, when it comes to art in general, like, I love it and I love the idea of like making things, but sometimes I'm just like starting can be the most difficult thing, and also coming up with a concept, right? Because, like, if you want to do something, you don't want to make it exactly like something someone else did, but concepts can inspire. So it's really hard to find sometimes those lines between making it your own and also finding things that you even like, because everyone I feel like has a completely different eye when it comes to art pieces that draw their attention.
Absolutely. I think so no one is like original, right? And like that concept is explored in a book by Austin Kleon. It's called Steal Like an Artist. And it is basically like everyone is inspired by things around them. Like even if you're doing a still life from nature, like that's not an original piece because you
Mhm.
drew what you are seeing. And
Mhm.
so I love how like collective art can be in that sense of like being inspired by other people's work, and like when in doubt, like I will, if I want to make something but I don't want to know what I want to make, I'll go to like YouTube or Pinterest. And here's the thing, there's a thing called master studies, which is when you're essentially copying a piece of art that's already made, and you're not doing it for the purpose of like calling it your own or selling it. Like, that's not what, like, a master study is about. That is when that gets into, like, issues of, like, copyright and, like, stealing, is if you were trying to profit off of it or you were calling it your own idea. But being inspired by other people's work and wanting to, like, recreate it, to, like, hang on your own wall or just to, like, get your creative juices flowing, you're not gonna meet a lot of artists that don't do that or don't say, like, "Heck yeah," like, "Absolutely," like, "Try to recreate my work." I love that.
Yeah, I think I've seen that a lot online too with like DIY people, where sometimes, people in the community are like super excited when they see someone, took their idea and made it their own, and other people get really, really upset about it. But I guess for me, I feel like the concept of art is to share it, right? And if you didn't want people to see it, you wouldn't put it out there. So then at that same point, I feel like you can't get mad at someone who was inspired by that and made a piece based on something that you created, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Speaking of different media forms, do you have a specific method or media that is your favorite to use?
Right now, I'm really into, like, this is not a simple answer, but I'm into mixed media stuff in a sense of, like, I am using, like, pieces that I have, like, watercolored and then, like, cutting it out and then, like,
Mm.
putting it with some, like, decorative paper. There's this YouTuber that I love, her, like, handle is, like, EB Mixed Media, and she makes these videos of her, like, doing very similar pieces, and I get really inspired by her work and just, like, putting it's basically collaging, but it's mixed media because it's not, like, collaging, like, from a magazine,
Mhm.
and sometimes, like, pieces will come from, other sources like that, but sometimes I use, like, a combination of, like, a decorative paper that I got in a pack from, like, Michael's, and then, like, a flower that I watercolored or I drew or whatever, and then, like, some washi tape and stuff like that. I've
Mm.
been putting together a lot of things like that, and, like, scrapbooking is another, like, some of it looks more like scrapbooking than others, and I don't know where the difference between scrapbooking and mixed media art, like, where that line is, just because, like, I think you can call them both, like, either one depending on how artistic you feel and, like, how you feel about it, but I've been really, really inspired by mixed media stuff lately.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of people have been getting really into that kind of atmosphere of scrapbooking. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of books on like how to scrapbook and stuff like that, which I feel like when we were younger, people didn't really talk about it that much. Like vision boarding might have been a thing a little bit, but not to the extent I feel like it's at now, where people are literally filling up entire books and then starting a new one. Or I think people were saying like junk journaling is, I don't know if that's considered in the same realm of collages, but I've been seeing a lot of videos of people being like, okay, I'm going to take this from my junk journal and this is going to go in and stuff like that. Where do you kind of get the concepts? I know you kind of talked about you being inspired by other artists. Do you ever have an inspiration that just hits randomly, and like how do you push through that in moments where maybe your brain is stalling on what to do next?
That's a really good question because I think that that's something that blocks a lot of people is, like, concepts or, just themes, and when I was in undergrad, like, we were really encouraged to do, like, create a body of work, so, like, something like all of your pieces are cohesive, so, like, I had a friend who did a lot of stuff around, like, national parks and, like, geography and stuff, and my work was centered around feminism and social justice, and that like, having that central theme really helped me kinda narrow down the possibilities, but now a lot of my stuff is, like, what makes me feel good and what is, like, making me happy lately, like, what is inspiring me. So, like, I went to Joann's because they, like, just closed down and they were, like, having these big sales, and, like, I got this little sticker book that, like, has fun little doodles on it, and, like, that's kind of inspiring me, like, that color scheme, or, like, different journal spreads I'll see on Pinterest, like, if I see, like, lots of, like, cherries and, like, hearts or something. I also I draw a lot from, like, the materials I already have too, so if I have a paper, like a decorative paper, I'm like, "Oh, I really love the colors in this. Let me, like, see what I can put together. And a lot of my stuff recently hasn't really had like titles or themes. I feel like I've kind of grown out of that like type of art for myself just because like I said, I really want to focus on like what makes me feel good, but also just like color has been really inspiring lately. Like even like my fun top, like,
Mhm.
color is just really inspiring me. And, so and that's I think that ties back into my art therapy ness is like art therapy is more about the process than the final product. And
Mhm.
so I just like have fun doing something or making something. And then sometimes I share it with the world and sometimes I don't. And sometimes I'll just share it with like my partner and like my mom because like I'm like, look at how cute this is. But like I don't necessarily feel like I need the world to see it or like want the world to see it because art therapy also like I'm making fairly personal
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel
pieces a
like
lot
it
of the
could get
time. Yeah. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
especially I feel like getting personal or being like super exposed in that aspect, it can be a really hard thing, which is one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to get into making this podcast because I know I'm a very like upfront person, I feel like with how I feel about things, but I've constantly been told, "Oh my goodness, you're too much or you're feeling too much or like you need to calm down with your emotions." And this time space, I feel things are really heated in general and people should be aware of the fact that it's okay to have feelings and to maybe think through them, process them. And if you're comfortable with someone, share that. Because I also feel like it's really easy to get wrapped up in like the social media bubble of people all looking like their lives are happy and great and think, oh my goodness, look at all these people I know who are doing amazing. And look where I am right now. And sometimes maybe they are doing amazing, but a lot of people I think are more selective about what they show online because you don't want people to I guess seen as embarrassing for people to know, oh my gosh, that person's going through a hard time right now. Like, I guess it's a double-sided coin because some people will be like, that's so brave to share that. And other people will be like, wow, that's embarrassing. It just depends on the group that you surround yourself with. So you mentioned like being really interested in color theory. Why do you think that like color is important?
I have thought on this question a little bit and like I think color is kind of at the core of like what makes us like things. For example, like I have this like lamp over here that my sister-in-law gave me for my birthday that has like sunflowers coming out of it. And sunflowers were my favorite flower for a really long time. Probably still are they're still up there for me. Because of like their vibrant yellow color. And I just like think that they're such a pretty thing. And I think that color has a lot to do with like aesthetic pleasure.
Mm,
And I know that not everyone loves a lot of color. Um, but for me, and I think for a lot of people, that's kind of along the lines of like the maximalist, like type of vibes that I see like people decorating on like social media or whatever. I love a combination of all the colors. My mom will be like, she'll come out of her bedroom sometimes and she's like, does this shirt go with these pants? Like, are these colors okay? And I'm like, Mom, every color goes together. I never like when I was a kid and they would like talk about like, oh, clashing colors. I don't understand that. What colors clash?
mm,
They all go together if you style them right. Of course, like there are some that like some tones and stuff that like look a little dingier, like whatever. But I'm like, okay, they say like contrasting colors don't go together, but then they say they do go together. I'm
Yeah, I
like
think it's more about
green,
how you wear it. Like if you exude that you feel
yes.
comfortable versus uncomfortable in it.
Absolutely, and, like, yeah, you see somebody wearing, like, a wild print or something, if they're rocking it, like, if they're feeling themselves, you're like, "Okay, like, go off." At least I am. I
Mhm.
don't know, I know that there are always gonna be, like, those negative people, kinda like what you're just saying with, like, people that are like, "Oh, that's so embarrassing to be, like, vulnerable on the internet," but, like, there's always gonna be those people, whether you, like, wear the colors or not, whether you post your vulnerability or not. So, like, if it's something you wanna do, I say go for it. Like, I say be yourself and wear your freak flag colors. Like, I I love expressing myself. I recently got colored eyeliner for my
Mhm.
birthday, and so I have pink on today to match the pink down here, but I love wearing colored eyeliner even when I have, like, gym shorts on. Sometimes I'll throw colored eyeliner on just because it makes me feel good. Like,
Mhm.
color makes me feel good, and I don't know, I think that that's pretty true for a lot of people, if I had to guess.
Yeah, do you think that it goes hand in hand with the aspect that sometimes people feel like they need bright things to take them out of dark times? Because if you surround yourself by a lot of like black and gray, sometimes it's easier to kind of slink into the darkness versus if you have a lot of brightness around you, it can propel you out of that negative mind space.
Yeah, I think that's totally applicable. Of course, we can't say like, "Oh, that's true for all people,"
Mhm.
but I think that has to be true for a lot of people. And like, even like, I have my little med planner here that's rainbow colored.
Ooh.
Isn't that so cute? Like, it just like makes me happy when I take my meds every day. Like, it's just it does bring me out of the darkness, I think, because like it's the same with like opening curtains. Like,
Mhm.
of course I want to lay in bed all day if it's dark in my room. Like, let me
Girl,
open the
even sometimes
curtains,
when
get
it's
some
not
brightness in
dark in
here.
my room, I'm like,
True.
especially right now, because
Very
I'm
true.
like, my days are a little bit undefined, except for starting next week, they're going to be a little bit more rigid. So I'm excited
Ooh.
because I've like spent, kind of like 2 months just having a lot of openness, which is exciting and terrifying. But it's so hard to find those balances of pushing yourself, but also letting yourself just exist and not feeling guilty for being in either of those places. Because I feel like, I don't know if you ever feel like this, but I constantly feel like, oh my gosh, I'm doing too much or I'm doing too little. I never feel like I'm at the right amount. And I'm always putting too much pressure on myself on one side. And it's really hard to kind of get to the point of just like existing and being.
I have definitely experienced that. I have ADHD, and so there are a lot of days where like, yeah, the motivation is either too much or not enough, and finding that balance of like, yeah, am I doing enough or am I doing too much? Am I going to burn myself out? Because they always like warn me of like, we'll take breaks too, because if you keep going at this rate, then you're just gonna crash out. And I'm just like, but I have this energy. I have to get things done right now
Mm.
because otherwise, like tomorrow, I'm not gonna have this energy. I know that. And yeah, I think it's really hard to find that balance and like also like giving yourself grace in those moments of like, I just need a day to run on the couch because I think, there's a difference between like, I just need a day to rot on the couch and, like, I've been rotting on the couch for 3 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
this is not good, you
Yeah,
know?
I've been finding myself napping a lot more than I normally do, but I'm just so tired. And so I'm just trying to like let my body exist a little bit where I'm like, you know what? Like, I really shouldn't, but like, who's the one saying I shouldn't? You know what I mean? It's literally just myself telling me that I can't. But at the same time, like, if I'm tired and I don't have anything going on, like, I have a to do list, obviously, of things I want slash need to get done, but I'm also trying to get a lot better with like the mental health self care aspect because previously I would always just push through all of the things that I volunteered for or was involved in and like put everything into that. And then I had like nothing left to give. So now, there's ebbs and flows. We're working through it. Going off of like sharing vulnerability, I feel like it takes like a lot of courage to, share things that you're going through, especially when it comes to art, because I feel like you're truly bearing your soul when you make a piece and you share that. How have you gotten to the point where you're comfortable showing that kind of side of yourself?
Um, it has been a process for sure, and I think it's still a process. One of my favorite, like, little quotes or, like, sayings or whatever is, like, "Comparison is the thief of joy." I really struggled with comparison in undergrad, just because, like, everybody was so talented all the time. And I just felt like I was never good enough, like my art wasn't good enough, and I was always, like, telling my, like, instructors, "Well, I didn't take art classes in high school, like, I'm not as, like, whatever as these people," and, like, the truth of it is, like, I really shouldn't have even, like, had to feel like I had to make those excuses or whatever because, like, the fact is, like, my skill is where it's at, and, like, let's just, like, work with what we have to, like, build, like, start
Mhm.
where we are, meet me where I am, instead of being like, "Well, why aren't you up here?" And I think that's, like, a huge thing I've, like, learned through grad school is, like, meeting myself where I am and, like, meeting clients where they are too. because you can't like move somebody up, whether it's like their progress or, you know, like their skill with art or like whatever it may be. I had like a pretty tough childhood when it comes to like bullying and stuff. And I really closed myself off and like put myself in a shell. If when I was like 17, if you would have told me I would have been doing this podcast or like half of the other stuff I've done to like that like is out of my shell like this, I'd have been like, no way. Like, I don't want people looking at me. Like, I don't want like any sort of attention like that. And it has taken so much like getting used to like the critiques with like art, um because like that's a part of like being an artist is like them like your instructors or like, you know, gallery people or whoever. I don't know, I don't do like art shows anymore, but like whoever critiquing your work, like that is a part of it, and being able to take that is like a huge strength, I think, because um it kind of helps with like real life with like taking like constructive criticism. Like it's helped me at jobs and stuff before too. And I'm definitely still working on like taking that constructive criticism. But as far as like the vulnerability and stuff, like I started like sharing like little bits of my art, and like a kid from my high school that like I was in band with messaged me one time. He like swiped up on one of my pieces on my Snapchat story and was like, what is this even supposed to be? And I like told him what it was, and he was like, that looks nothing like that. He was like, are you kidding? That's terrible. I like
Dang.
the old me like might have like, you know, like roasted him or like maybe like posted on my story and being like, you know, I like don't really need your critiques or like whatever, whatever. I just unfriended him. Like I just simply unfriended him because I was just like, if you don't like it and you're gonna be mean to me like that when you don't know anything about art, like it's one thing if you have a critique for me, like from a realistic artistic standpoint. But if you're just gonna be mean, just to be mean, like I'm done. Like we're not friends. Like don't.
I also feel like everybody sees the world differently. So my perspective of what something looks like is also going to be different from your perspective, even if we're looking at the same item.
Well, and it was an abstract piece too. Like it was the way it was made, it was never going to be like a precise, it was a mushroom, I think. It was like never going to be a precise mushroom. It was just like supposed to kind of like suggest the form of a mushroom, but he's like very science and math oriented. So he's like, that doesn't even look like a mushroom. What are you talking about? And it's,
Hmm.
yeah, it's like also art doesn't have to be one thing. If I say it's a mushroom and I'm the artist, that's a mushroom, dude. Like, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, I also feel like I really relate to what you said about being like, oh, well, I don't have experience. I'm not going to be as good at this as other people. I think it's so easy to do that comparison aspect onto ourselves. But if it was a friend, right, we would have a completely different reaction or tone to it. I also think it's a lot harder to grow when you're constantly putting yourself down. And so I've been trying to be more consciously aware of moments where I say negativity towards myself and kind of flip the sentence to be something different that isn't a positive tone, because we already get enough negative energy from different people in the world. We don't need to contribute more negativity to our own minds and to our own souls.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that that's like a huge part of like what I've learned in therapy is like rewording or reframing like the negative self-talk that I have. So like sometimes, you know, if I like drop something or forget something, like my instinct is to call myself like a rude name, like stupid or whatever. And like I'll be like, I'm not stupid, like I just forgot to grab my keys. Or like
Mhm.
I am a human and I drop things, I make mistakes. Like that is 100% normal. And because I think we don't think about how those little comments about ourselves like builds up, but think about if somebody else was saying those things about you when you did little things like that. Like those would start to add up and you're gonna start to be like, I don't like that person. That's a mean person to me.
Mhm.
So I think being able to flip those around and being like, oh, like that's not it. Even if it's like it was your first thought to have, like, the negative self-talk and then, like, reframing it, I still think that's a huge tool that benefits anybody, really,
I'm
yeah.
not perfect at it, but we're trying. Completely
Yeah.
off topic, but I think I saw something about you being involved in like a fashion show a while back. I know
Yes.
it was a while back, but would you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was in a wearable fashion show, and it was my freshman year at Iowa State, and it was really cool. It's, like, the only experience I have like that, and I really don't know how, like, who I was at 19 did that because I was very scared. I was very, like, still like, I'm not gonna say I'm, like, perfect with self-confidence, but I was very not confident in myself at that point and just very insecure, and I'm not really sure how I did it, but I did, and I helped design what I was wearing, and it was a really cool experience. It was just me and one other girl that made, like, the outfit that I wore, and she actually sewed it, like, to my body. It was entirely made out of recycled materials. It was old bike tire tubes is what we made it out of, and we got, like, the eco-friendly award, and it was really nerve-wracking, but when I actually, like, walked across the stage, like, I felt invincible, and, like, I don't know, maybe that was, like, a start of, like, my self-confidence, like, confident persona type of, like, journey just because I was like, "All these people are looking at me, and they're, like, clapping, and, like, they're acknowledging that, like, what I'm doing is cool, so
Mhm.
that means something," like,
How
yeah.
long did it take for y'all to get that concept and bring it to life?
We had to turn it around fast.
Really?
I don't remember we were in the studio all the time, like, we spent nights together in the studio, and, like, the hard part was is that I could help with concept, but I couldn't help with, like, sewing or whatever because she literally sewed it to my body so that it would fit me,
Mhm.
and we didn't, have, like, a skeleton of my body or whatever that we could use, so she had to sew it while it was on me, and, like, I could hold things together for her, but she had to do most of the legwork. So shout out to Maggie, but she was a champion and I can't remember. I feel like the whole project was like 4 weeks or something.
Wow,
It
that's
was
really quick.
yeah, it was crazy. Like he was like the only thing we got for like direction was like, okay, you guys are doing like recycled materials and you have to choose a song that inspires your piece, which was a really weird and complex part of it that like we didn't really understand, but we had to go with. But we picked, I want to say, I think it was Breeze Blocks by Alt J or something like that.
Okay,
I
I
don't
think I know
remember.
that song.
Okay, so good. But it was yeah, it was a song like that or Matilda maybe, I don't remember. Um, it was a really good song that we picked. It was just like recycled material is all we had to go off of. So we were like, "Okay, like where can we get like a mass amount of like recycled material that I can like wear?" So
Yeah.
we like went to this bike shop in downtown Ames, and we're like, "Can we have, like, all of your bike tubing? Like, all of your old bike tubing?" And they gave it to us, and we also used, like, old fishing wire. We used an old rake to make, like, the headdress thing, and my dad, like, helped weld that, like, breastplate part of it just so that it would, like, sit on my shoulders. But, yeah, it was all done in 4 weeks, I think, and then we had to do the fashion show, and yeah, it was crazy. It was an intense time.
I can imagine if you're doing it that quickly. So now to kind of, I guess, bounce back to the main topic that I think you wanted to talk about, which was kind of like art journaling. So can we talk about what exactly that is and what got you interested in doing that kind of work?
Yeah, art journaling, I feel like it's, like, different to everybody, so I'm just gonna, like, speak on my own experience. Art journaling to me is a whole lot of different things. But when I was a freshman and I was going through a really tough time when I was like an undecided major and stuff, I was like, maybe I should like buy a journal and like journal about my, like what's going on, whatever. And so I did that and I would journal like traditional journaling, but then I was like doing something one day and I like wanted to draw whatever was in front of me. And then I like ended up writing like a couple poems in there. And then I like found art journaling on Pinterest and got inspired by a few ideas I saw in there. So I would like combine some of my journaling with like the art I would make, or like every couple pages would be journaling and then it would be art, and it would just be a combination of the two. And the art aspect of it, I mean, really all of it is like on the basis of like making me feel better and process like whatever I was going through. And that was a huge asset for me. I ended up starting to see a therapist that quarter or that semester, and she was like, "Well, what if you like make something in your art journal every day?" And I did that for the whole semester, like, after that, and, it, like, really brought me into a better place. I was, like, looking forward to things and, like, um, just made me feel a lot better. I have, like, gone through phases of, like, how much journaling I'm doing, and I'm kind of back in that era right now, of journaling and stuff, and a lot of, like, people on the internet art journal, and they do, like, just art pieces. They don't, like, journal with it per se.
Mhm.
I kinda do a mix of the 2 still. Like, I'll journal and then I'll, like, create an art piece, or I'll, like, journal on top of an art piece, just
Oh.
different combinations of it. Sometimes I'll, like, make a little collage, like, in the bottom corner or something, and then, like, journal up here or something. I still have the same journal that I worked in my freshman year because it's, like, this thick, and yeah, I'm still working in it, because I haven't been, like, consistent, like, every day with it like I
Mhm.
was. So, I still work in that one, but I also, like, I have another journal that I use for more, like, scrapbooking type
Mhm.
of art journaling, which and then there's, like, junk journaling too, which is just, like, journaling about, like, your everyday stuff, which is pretty close to scrapbooking, I would say.
So, if somebody wanted to get started on making their own art journal, what would you suggest that they would need, and what would be a good starting point to get into it?
So honestly, the only things that somebody would need per se is like, some sort of like notebook or sketchbook or like journal, something, and like some sort of writing utensil. Of course, you can have like a whole bunch of other stuff too. You could have collage materials and glue and like a tape runner, or, like a vision board book, or like, just all of these things, magazines to cut out of. But what I started with when I was in college was, like, colored pens and my journal. I got into where I used, like, colored pencils sometimes, and sometimes I would take a piece out of the journal so that I had the lines, and then, like, tape it over, like, a piece that I had, like, colored or whatever, so that it, like, had the lines on top of, like, whatever art piece I had done. And there are different, like, all sorts of different ways to get creative with it, but literally just, like, anything that you can use to create art or draw or doodle or whatever you want, you
I
can
know
use.
some people struggle to have that starting point. So, is there a prompt you would suggest starting with, or because I know, like, I feel like you could get writer's block when you're not, or like artist block, I guess would be like the
Yeah.
synonym for that, where you'll just stare at the page because you might not have the inspiration because you're newer and you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah, so one thing that I know a lot of people do to like get over the fear of like the blank page is they'll just take a pencil and just like scribble a line. That way there's something on the page, and then like you can't screw it up now because it's like it's got a scribble on it. But as far as a prompt, that's a really interesting question because I will just like take pieces that are speaking to me at that moment, like pretty things, and just like put them together. Sometimes I'll like only have markers, so I'll just like draw flowers. Flowers are kind of my go-to for drawing. So if someone has like a go-to like image, so say you're good at drawing birds or, whatever, flowers are my go-to. So that's something I'll do if I just have markers on me, but also just like drawing what's in front of you. Like I have a lamp and like some jewelry in front of me, like I can draw that. Like you could even make it into a still life, like set it up kind of nice and pretty. That way it's like it looks intentional, and then draw what's in front of you. You can just use a pencil to do that. I think that like drawing in and of itself, for me anyway, and for I know for other people, it's not for everybody, but like drawing and like creating helps calm me down. It like regulates me. And I know that's not true for everyone. Like art isn't a great coping skill for everyone. My mom is a good example of that. My mom does not like creating, funnily enough. It really helps calm me down, like when I'm just like trying to focus on like drawing whatever's in front of me. So I think that doing that could be a great start.
In terms of art and your overall self journey, how do you think that art has played a role in you becoming who you are?
Goodness. Art has made a huge impact on me and like created who I am. And I am a much different person than I was when I was in high school because of art. And I think that that's the most beautiful thing. It's helped contribute to like my open-mindedness and just like my willingness to learn and adapt and just roll with the punches. Art kind of lends itself to like every cliche that you've ever heard of like growing and learning. So it's just made a huge impact on who I am, and I truly would not be the same person if it wasn't for art, honestly. There's the pug. Hi, Becky.
Yes, hello. He has now decided that he wants to join all of a sudden because I guess he's jealous. Why do you think that art is so important in the world that we live in?
I think art, from an artist's perspective, is a huge means of expression. And I think that it helps so many people express themselves and becoming who they are and like getting through things. Of course, that's like my art therapy background, like talking, but I think that so many people turn to different realms of art too, like whether that's writing or, creating music or playing guitar, like, whatever art is to you. I think so many people turn to art when they're struggling, and it is a way of expression that is just the only means for some people to get those things out and to process those things. So I think from that perspective, it is like a valuable form of expression. But then I also think it helps us see the world from other people's lenses. It helps us like be open-minded to other views and understand things more, I think.
Where do you currently think you are with yourself in terms of your life path?
That's an interesting question. I feel like I am on the verge of really finding myself. I've done a lot of like work towards that through my program. I like to say that my grad program is very hippy dippy, and I mean that in the best way possible. I love it. I absolutely love it. But we do a lot of self discovery, a lot of soul searching for ourselves and like what our own journeys are. And I'm in a class right now. It's called Hermeneutics of Self. I just started it. This is week 2. And hermeneutics is like the studying of an old text. And so hermeneutics of self is like studying yourself and like getting to know yourself and who you truly are. And so I'm really excited to see where this class leads me.
Mhm.
I have been seeing blue jays pretty frequently for about a year now. I see several a week, and blue jays can be a sign of like good direction or good fortune. And so that to me has been like, I'm on the right path. I'm discovering myself, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
And I feel like this question kind of goes hand in hand with the last one, but what era do you think that you're currently in? And I've had people say the resiliency era or different things like that. I'm currently in my pivoting era. Where do you feel like you stand in that range?
I feel like I'm in my self-discovery era for sure. I think that I've done a lot of soul searching recently and I'm still working on it. So, yeah, self-discovery era.
Okay. And then do you have any final thoughts that you want to share?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for having me on here. This has been a really great
Yeah, of
conversation.
course. And now I'm just going to go with my outro, which again
Yeah.
is memorized. So apologies ahead of time. Thank you for joining me on this journey of rediscovery. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd like for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with someone who you feel like might need it or gain something from it. Remember, healing isn't linear, growth takes courage, but you're never alone in it. Let's keep the conversation going. Follow the Rediscovery Journal both here on whatever platform you're listening to and on Instagram at the Rediscovery Journal, and connect with our community. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and most of all, keep showing up for yourself.